Alright, so slope-intercept form is what we call the equation of a line if it is in this format, which is y, okay, so you'll have y as a variable equals m, which will be a number, times x, okay, as a variable, plus, and this, or minus, and this will be a number, okay, but they call it y equals mx plus b, okay. So let's go back up here to the top just a second, right here in this corner where it says the slope is. What did we figure out the slope was last week? What did we call it? Both words on the top and the bottom of our fraction bar started with an R.
Rise and fall.
Not fall. What was the rise, which was our up and down, and then we had our
undefined.
Nope, our run. How far it moved left or right, remember? Alright, so we determined that slope was the rise over the run, or the change in our y over the change in our x. Okay. Alright, so rise over run, or change in y over change in x. Okay, so y-intercept. That's something we haven't talked about yet, but when we talk about the y-intercept, we're talking about on a graph, okay? Remember, we have an x-axis and we have a y-axis. So if we're talking about a y-intercept, we should kind of figure out it has something to do with that y-axis. And it does. A y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay? So it's where the line crosses the y-axis, or at what point the line actually crosses the y-axis. And remember, the y-axis is the one that's up and down. Alright, so those are two vocabulary words we need to know for slope-intercept form. Slope, which is what we've been talking about, which is rise over run. Okay, and then y-intercept, which is where our line crosses the y-axis at. Okay. Alright, so the formula for the equation of a line goes in that blank right there, using its slope and its y-intercept. If you know those two things, you can write the equation of a line. Okay, so to do the formula for the equation of a line, we use its slope and its y-intercept. That's the only two pieces of information you need. So we already talked about slope-intercept form as this equation y equals mx plus b. Okay, that's the format. And I said you'll always have a y for your variable. Anybody remember what m stands for? We talked about it last week. We said it was really funny because it's what we're talking about right now, and I told you I didn't know why they used m, because there's no m in the word. Anybody remember? It's the slope, okay? So, right here where this m is at, remember I told you y equals some number times x? Well, that some number is going to be whatever your slope is. So, whatever number's in front of the x is always your slope. So, if you're writing the equation, you would put the slope right there, okay? If you're given the equation, that number would be your slope, all right? And then the b, we always have an x, that's our variable. So our y, I'm just going to color it in so you remember, will always be y. Okay, the x will always be x. They'll stay variables, okay, when you're writing the equation of the line. All right, the m is going to be replaced by your slope. The B will be replaced. The B stands for, and again, I don't know why because there's no B in this, but the y-intercept. I don't have room to write that right there. Let me write it below it. Okay. So the B always stands for the y-intercept. So it's going to be whatever number. If it's a negative y-intercept, so the line crosses at a negative number on the y-axis, then it'll be minus whatever that number is. Okay, if it's on the positive side of the y-intercept or on the y-axis, and you have a positive y-intercept, then it'll be plus whatever that number is. Okay. All right, everybody got that? All right. So let's do a little practice with it right here. Come on now.
On the counter, is this yours? Do you want to
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Here
you.
you go.
All right, so if we look here at this graph, it says steps for graphing. Everybody see where it says that in the bottom right-hand corner? All right, so somebody read for me what it says at step 1. Start by placing a point at, okay? So the one thing that we know so far that we're going to have a point is the y-intercept, okay? So we're going to start by placing a point at the y-intercept, which is where the B is at in the equation. Okay? So this is our equation we're graphing right here. So what number is the y-intercept? We've got y equals negative 3x plus 2. So 2, and it's plus 2, so it's positive 2. So I'm going to go over here to positive 2 on the y-axis. And I'm going to place a point. Okay. All right, what's my x value at that point if I had to write an ordered pair for that? If I was going to write my ordered pair for this, I have a 2 for my y value. What's my x value? What value of x am I at right here? 0. Okay, your y-intercept, your x is always 0. All right. X is always 0 at your y-intercept if you have to write the order pair. Okay, step 2 says, from that point, count out the, and we're going to count out the slope, or the rise over the run. Okay, to find the next point. And it says, be careful about, and we're going to put in that negatives. Okay, we're going to be careful about negatives, because if it's got a negative, then you got to make sure the negative goes with one or the other number. So you either have to remember to go up and then left, or down and right. Okay, only the negative can go with either number. So what's our slope in this line? Y equals negative 3x plus 2. What's the value for our slope? Here's our equation right here. Slope is m. So what's the value for our slope? Okay, negative 3. Okay, just the slope. The x is your variable. It's your x value. All right, so if this is negative 3 and I want to write that as a fraction to be able to graph this line, I can write my slope as negative 3 over 1. Okay, so that negative 3 tells me to go up or down?
Down.
Down. So I'm going to start at this point here at my y-intercept, and I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and it tells me to run across 1, so to the right 1, and that will be my next point on this line. All right, if I wanted to, I could make more points, okay? I like to have more than 2 points to draw my line to make sure I get my line drawn correctly. You don't have to have more than 2 points. You can draw a line with just 2 points. All right, but all I have to do is keep using my slope, okay, from the next point. So I can start at that point I just made, and I can go down 3 more. 1, 2, 3, and right 1. And guess what? That's another point on my line. Okay? Or I can go back to my y-intercept, and I can go up 3 and to the left 1, because that negative sign can go with either number. So if I go up 1, 2, 3, then my x value, my 1 would be negative, which means I go to the left 1, and I can put a point right there. And guess what? That would be a point on my line. Okay? So I can get as many points as I need to be able to draw a line. All right, and then step 3, we connect. Sorry, I'm not writing connect very clear. Let's redo that. We connect the 2 points, okay, or however many points you've done to form our line. So I'm going to connect them. And there's my line that matches the equation y equals negative 3x plus 2. All right, so any questions? So what does our M stand for?